Okay, let's dive in. There's this one question, isn't there? The one that eventually hits every single one of us.
The ultimate question.
Exactly. What happens after we die? I mean, picture it. The heart stops beating. No more breath.
Brainwaves go flat, silence on the monitors.
Yeah, the body's just still. By all the biological signs we know, that looks like the absolute end. The end of us.
It certainly looks that way.
But what if it isn't? What if, just after that last breath, that final silence, something else happens, something continues? So for this deep dive, we're going to put the faith-based answers to one side, just for now.
Right. We're focusing elsewhere today.
We want to look at how science and philosophy, too, have actually tried to grapple with this enormous mystery, asking some pretty tough questions, chasing down some really strange clues.
And our source for this, Life After Death, Science and the Unknown, it pulls together findings that are, well,
Fascinating.
definitely fascinating.
Yeah.
And puzzling. A bit unsettling, honestly.
And still very much up in the air, unresolved. So our goal here is to give you a kind of shortcut through all this complex stuff, the scientific angles, the philosophical head-scratchers, without making your brain melt.
Yeah, let's try and unpack it.
Okay, let's do it.
So, where do we even start? I think the source makes a really crucial point early on, before you can talk about after death.
I have to talk about life, right? Specifically consciousness.
Exactly. What is consciousness? It sounds simple, but it's maybe the biggest mystery we have while we're still breathing. We kind of lack that fundamental baseline.
That really is the crux of it, isn't it? Because neuroscientists, they've made incredible strides. They can point to the brain regions where thoughts pop up.
They can show you how memories are likely stored, which networks buzz when you feel, say, fear or joy.
But, and this is the huge but, it's what they call the hard problem of consciousness. Despite mapping all that brain machinery.
Nobody can really explain why we're aware, why we experience things.
Like, why do we feel the color red? Not just detect light waves, but have that subjective sensation, redness.
Or why do we sense time passing? That inner feeling of duration.
Or even just knowing that we know things. That self-awareness, it's that whole inner world, that subjective quality. It's still a complete enigma.
Precisely. And that's the hard problem David Chalmers and others talk about. There's the easy stuff, figuring out how the brain functions, the mechanics.
Which isn't actually easy at all, but yeah.
Right, relatively speaking. But then there's the truly hard part, explaining the experience itself. Why does it feel like something to be you? Why have an inner life at all?
So how does that connect to life after death?
Well, think about it. If we can't fully grasp what consciousness is when the brain is working perfectly fine, how can we be so absolutely certain, scientifically certain, that it just switches off, poof, the moment the brain stops functioning biologically?
That unknown, it leaves a massive question mark hanging there.
It really does. It challenges the basic assumption that consciousness is just a byproduct of the brain that vanishes when the brain dies. What if it's more complex?
Okay, so that's the big philosophical hurdle. Consciousness itself is weird.
Fundamentally weird.
But then things get even stranger, maybe more concrete. The source moves into these observations, these reports that have really thrown fuel on the fire. Near-death experiences. NDEs.
Ah, yes, NDEs. This is where things get particularly compelling from an anecdotal standpoint.
Because these aren't just dreams or fuzzy feelings. The source talks about people who are clinically dead, like really dead.
By standard medical definitions, yes. No pulse, no breathing, often flat EEG, meaning no detectable brain activity.
And yet, they come back. And they come back with these incredibly vivid, structured memories of what happened during that time.
Memories that are sometimes verifiable.
That's the really wild part. People talk about floating above their bodies, seeing the doctors working on them.
Sometimes describing specific things in the room, conversations.
Things they couldn't possibly have seen or heard in their physical state.
Right, and then the experience often shifts, doesn't it? Moving beyond the room.
Yeah, into what they often describe as this sense of timelessness, or moving through a tunnel, or encountering beings of light. Very different experiences, but with common threads.
And the consistency across cultures, across backgrounds, is notable.
So how do we explain that? What are the main camps?
Well, as you'd expect, there are contrasting views. Skeptics often argue, quite reasonably from a materialist perspective, that these are hallucinations.
Like the brain's last fireworks show. Oxygen deprivation, drug effects, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Stress-induced biochemical reactions in a dying brain creating these sensations. Plausible mechanisms have been proposed.
But then there's the other side.
The other side asks, okay, if the brain was truly offline, demonstrably inactive based on our measurements.
Right.
Then who or what was having the experience, who was doing the watching, and crucially, how were coherent, detailed memories being formed, stored, and then recalled later?
That memory formation part is tricky if the brain structures needed are supposed to be inactive.
It presents a real challenge to the idea that consciousness is only brain activity. And then there's something else the source mentions, which is maybe even more chilling.
Okay.
Some studies, serious studies in hospitals, have started documenting subtle signs of brain activity, even markers associated with consciousness.
Wait, after death has been declared?
For minutes after, in some cases, using more sensitive equipment than just the standard checks.
Wow. Okay, that's something.
Now, let's be super clear, like the sources, this is not proof of life after death, not by a long shot.
Right. It's not like seeing ghosts on the EEG.
No, but it's also not the complete instant silence many assumed was there. It complicates the picture. It leaves this significant scientific question mark.
So these NDEs and these post-mortem activity findings, they don't give answers, but they definitely shake up the easy assumption.
They absolutely do. They force us to confront the edges of our understanding.
Which kind of leads us naturally into the next area. The source explores the philosophical side of things again, but maybe with a different angle.
Right. Moving from direct observation, however puzzling, back into these really deep, unsettling questions.
Philosophers, they don't bring lab results, but they bring these questions that poke at our whole worldview.
Questions like, what even is the self? Is it just, a story our neurons are telling? A complex pattern that dissolves when the neurons stop firing?
Or could identity, the sense of me that feels so real and continuous, could it somehow persist? Exist independently of the body that generated it? Sounds wild, but...
It's a fundamental question about the nature of selfhood. And then there's time.
Time. Always messing things up.
Well, Einstein showed us time isn't this fixed universal clock ticking away steadily, right? It's relative. It can stretch. It can bend your gravity.
So the philosophers ask, if time itself is so flexible, could after death mean something completely different from just stopping? Could it be a transition into a state where linear time doesn't even apply in the way we think?
Maybe it's not an after in the temporal sense we understand.
These aren't just abstract games either. They hit right at the core of who we think we are.
And if you connect this to the bigger picture of the universe, the source points out, our universe is already fundamentally bizarre.
That's an understatement.
We live in a reality with quantum entanglement, where particles can be linked instantly across galaxies. Spooky action at a distance, Einstein called it.
Yeah. And time dilation is real. Black holes warp space-time in ways that boggle the mind.
So the argument goes, in a universe this strange, this counterintuitive, where the basic rules of reality are already so far from our everyday experience.
Is it really that much of a leap to wonder if consciousness or some aspect of us might persist beyond physical death in ways we can't yet imagine?
Maybe our current scientific tools, designed mostly for the physical world, just aren't equipped to detect or measure something non-physical or non-local, if it exists.
It encourages you, the listener, to really think critically about your own assumptions, about what's possible, what reality even is.
It's about embracing that sense of wonder, maybe, instead of shutting down possibilities just because they don't fit neatly into our current boxes.
So after all of that, the consciousness puzzle, the NDEs, the philosophical questions, where does that leave us? What's the bottom line here?
Well, the source is very clear on this, and we need to be too. There's absolutely no definitive scientific proof of life after death. Full stop.
No smoking gun.
Yeah.
No repeatable experiment under controlled conditions that settles it.
None whatsoever.
But this is the crucial. But science hasn't slammed the door shut either. It's not case closed.
Far from it. What we have, as the source puts it, is this collection of scattered data points. These moments like NDEs that we can't easily explain away.
And this huge, silent question mark hanging over everything.
Yeah. And maybe that's the most haunting part of it all, not what we know happens after death.
But what we realize, we don't know. The sheer scale of the unknown.
Exactly. That uncertainty, that unresolved mystery is profound in itself.
So it leaves you, the listener, with something pretty deep to ponder.
It does. The source offers this beautiful final thought. Next time you're looking up at the night sky, just remember what you are. You're this little flicker of awareness, right? A subjective viewpoint inside this vast, mysterious universe.
A flicker in the cosmos.
Yeah. And when that flicker fades, when the body stops, maybe, just maybe, it doesn't actually go out.
Maybe it just changes form, changes shape.
That's the lingering question. It's an invitation, really, not to find a simple answer, but maybe to stay curious, stay open to the immensity of what we still don't understand.